smells a little funny.
You guys all seem traumatized. Okay, so
Yes, welcome, guys. And we're back. So Ari, we've spoken before.
Yeah.
I was so pleased that you remembered me because I think it was about this time last year that we spoke about Hereditary, which kicked me in the teeth so hard, and I was so excited after seeing that film. I've got to talk to this filmmaker about his fucked up relationship with his parents and his dysfunctional family and his crazy upbringing, and we're going to talk about it. But that wasn't the case for you, which kind of screwed up my interview.
Right, I sort of insisted on being cryptic and withholding, which
That's
I don't tend
right.
to do with.
So dare I ask if the film that these people just saw is in any way autobiographical?
I don't know if I would categorize it as autobiographical. I don't know if that's the designation that I would throw
Feel
at it.
free to correct my designation.
It's personal. I wrote this while I was going through a breakup, and this is like the product of me writing my way out of a breakup. And then,
I'd say that's a big yes. Okay, one of the things that's so interesting to me about this film and about all of your films is that, I was reading other people reviewing the film and they were describing it completely differently than how I would. So I actually want to hear it from you guys. Jack. Jack's down.
You want me to describe the film?
I want you to describe the film in your words. Haiku.
In a haiku?
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, I think that it would be underselling the film to say that it's just a horror. I think that there's a lot more going on in it. It is a movie about relationships, about relationship dissolving, and as we've heard from a lot of the critics who've seen it, they feel like it's kind of a tapestry that's woven of many threads. How's that?
That's better than I would have written. Send them to me, they can write for Rumor.
I see the film as being a fairy tale. And when I've been tasked with describing the film, I kind of leave it at, this is a breakup movie. I guess I've been talking about the film for the last week. I don't enjoy talking, but or at least not when it's like for posterity and I can regret it for the rest of my life. But I guess one thing, so it is a folk horror film. I do consider it like a contribution to the folk horror subgenre. But for the men in the film, for like the visitors, for the American men, and then for the two British people, it's a folk horror film. And for Danny, our main character, the film is a wish fulfillment fantasy.
Yes.
And so that was sort of my way in that, that allowed me to, I don't know.
Okay, no, that's perfect. I'll take it. Because what I expected you to say was The Wizard of Oz for perverts. Was that it?
I said that before.
Yes, you did. You want to just...
I mean, I was...
we can leave it.
He was high on drugs.
Oh!
I was at some event, and then somebody asked me if I could talk about the film in a way that I hadn't before, and I had a few drinks, and then I wasn't expecting to like see a headline the next morning. But yeah, I wouldn't expound further.
That rules. That's the best. Thank you.
On that though, I do think, I don't know if the audience picked up on here tonight, there's an awful lot of humor in the film as well. For
You
such
guys pick up on that?
for such an incredibly dark movie, and I think that that's a really important element of it because it's like challenging for the audience. It's more than just kind of like a straight, scary film. It's kind of pushing the envelope, and it's like, okay, what really is funny? What can you laugh at and what can you not laugh at? Because when we were in New York, I don't know how you guys felt about the sex scene tonight, but in New York, half of the audience just burst out laughing, and the other half were looking at them going, what the fuck are these people laughing at? So it's really interesting in that respect.
When she pushes on your bum. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty funny.
It was an experience.
What do you think, Dad?
I mean, you know, they're there for a reason. You know, it's all fun and games, but that's
You talking about bums or?
just you've gotta
The helping hands.
inseminate the girl.
The sex doula.
There's an end here.
Okey-doke,
I always laugh when we're pulling away from Christian in a bear suit. That for me is always when I
That's
laugh.
so sweet. Okay, well let's talk about Christian actually, and so I want to ask you. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but were you able to relate to this character much? I mean, I think we've all had the experience of like dragging around the corpse of a relationship that we should have let go a million years ago. But I guess what I'm asking is, are there any villains in Midsummer really?
I think more than, to define whether or not there's a villain in it, I think it's to ask the question, can you relate to the idea of being a person who doesn't have the capacity to be what someone else needs them to be? Like in this instance, Danny experiences this trauma, this unbelievable tragedy, and the relationship is winding down before that happens. And I think, generally we would accept in the society, the kind of society that we live in, that's the moment when you're supposed to step up and do the right thing. And doing the right thing is to stick it out, give the kind of emotional support that's demanded of you, and kind of be the upstanding guy. And in this case, this guy, Christian, is not the right guy to do the right thing, to take Ari's words. And so that for me was really interesting. I wasn't interested in playing a character who was just going to be cold and callous and a dick to a girl who was in pain and suffering. I wanted to try and feel the impotence of a person who doesn't have it in them to be what that person needs them to be. And that manifests itself in Christian's kind of toxicity, really. So yeah, that's as much as I'll say about it.
And I think that's all very convenient, but Christian's the villain.
Whoa!
No, it's I mean, we are aligned with Danny, so Christian is the villain, given that he is the foil to what she needs. But I also, I know that I've definitely been in Christian shoes before. I've been on both sides. I've clung to, people that are less invested than I am, and I have, wanted to leave something, but, have been afraid to, actually extricate myself from the relationship, out of fear of hurting the other person. For me, it was very important that Horga be this place with a very rich sense of history and this deep well of tradition, and this place that you could really stand in and that could feel real and tangible. And at the same time, that they really be simply there to sort of fulfill Danny's needs. And I can't watch the film anymore without seeing them like strictly as a manifestation of Danny's will. So I certainly don't see them as the villain. But if the film has a villain, I don't know.
It's me.
Okay, well, I'm glad you brought up Horga, because I understand that you borrowed some elements from existing folklore and then other aspects were completely invented. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. Well, so I did a lot of research into Swedish tradition, like midsummer tradition, Swedish folklore, mythology, and I also did research into German and English midsummer, and I would say from a lot of that found its way into the film, and I went very deep into research into different spiritual movements. Not all of them Swedish, but even if I was just relegating my research to Sweden, Rudolf Steiner and the Anthroposophical movement, Theosophy, but then there are so many other things that I was kind of drawing from pretty liberally. I don't like to name them in interviews, only because I actually find them very beautiful, and I don't want to like stain them with Midsommar. But
Well, that's no fun.
But then beyond that, we were drawing from a lot of different places. It's sort of a stew of real and imagined things. I learned the runic alphabet, the Uthark as opposed to the Futhark, and then we built this language, the affect language, which is sort of a combination of the runic alphabet and then these hieroglyphs that are tied to emotions, and then I kind of just used what suited the story and kind of just treated nothing as sacrosanct.
Okay, well, I'm into that part. I'd like to play a game with you guys. I'd like to play True or Fiction. I'm gonna name a few of the elements of the Horga, and Jack is gonna guess if it was true or if it was invented by Ari, and Ari can confirm or deny. What do you think?
Fair enough.
Does that sound like fun, guys?
Yeah.
I'm gonna move my chair because I can't see Jack, and it's such a shame. Okay, you ready? Aspect number 1, the use of hallucinogenic drugs at seasonal rituals.
Oh, that's 100% true.
Ari?
Are we talking about like that it is done, or that I have done it?
There's 2 prongs to this game now. That it's done, that it's practiced.
Yes, sure.
True?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, you get a point. Jack, I wasn't gonna keep score, but now that we've gotten this far. The last dancer standing becoming the May Queen. Is that a thing?
I'd be hazarding a guess at it, but I'd say true.
That is actually something that I that doesn't come from research. No, maybe, but maybe? God, I don't know.
Okay, in the context of this movie, I'll take it. Merging human body parts with organic matter as sacrificial symbols.
That's Ari.
So Ari.
That again was not coming from research.
Being very diplomatic. An inbred psychic revered as a holy seer? Is that a thing?
There are definitely elements of that in some pre-Christian pagan traditions, I believe.
Yes or no, Jack?
Yes.
Just kidding.
Again, you could just be quizzing me and I'd be stumped. No, there are precedents for that, but
Yeah, there's something like that on Vikings.
yeah.
I'm not saying you took it from there.
I've never seen Vikings.
Oh, you should, it's good. Okay, one more. This game is failing hard. Pubes in the food to indicate sexual interest?
That'll be Ari too.
That is actually drawn from research.
No fucking way.
There, see? It was all worth it.
And the menstrual blood. That is also that. Yeah. I was
Can't
very
tell if
excited
that's
when I
grosser.
found that.
I'm just not sure. You guys okay? Okay, I think maybe the audience has questions for you. I think that's what that means. Do you guys want to chime in? You guys want to play the game? Anything to say? Okay, right here.
Well, we built everything from scratch. So So scouting for locations was really a matter of scouting for a field that was, vast enough that we could, kind of build this world. The way I work is that I try to write a full shot list before I do anything, including talking to my crew and my cinematographer, just so I see the movie clearly in my head. And it's especially necessary if you are building sets, because you need to know what the geography of these buildings will be, and what the geography of the village and the buildings in relation to each other. And also just because this is a low budget film, we had a very tight budget, and I needed to make sure that everything we spent was going to be on the screen. So it was just a matter of going from field to field and seeing if it would accommodate the shot list. And there were some fields that were absolutely stunning. We shot this film in Hungary because it would have been just impossible in Sweden, because Sweden is so expensive, and because they have labor laws that prevent you from shooting more than 8 hours a day. Although
It's great to work there as an actor.
I mean, that's pretty much what we got on this film because we were chasing the sun. Yeah, it was just a matter of finding the right field, and then and the field that we found was very wild. The grass was taller than I was when we found it, which is not that hard, and hard to find. But yeah, so we had to cultivate this giant field and build 9 buildings, some of which were 3 stories tall, and we had to do that in 2 months, which was hard.
On a budget.
Yeah, on a very tight budget.
This doesn't look like an inexpensive film to make.
This is not. We did not have much more than we did on Hereditary. This is a very small film given what we were trying to do. Yeah.
More questions from the audience? There's one right there. Hi.
I was just curious if you could talk about the paintings and sort of how that image narrative also works in the story of the princess kissing the bear and the fairy tale.
Well, I guess I like layering my films with prophetic imagery that if you're looking in the margins, you can I guess see what's coming. As far as the murals go in the houses, that actually was inspired by research. While I was in Sweden writing the film, my production designer and I went up to Hälsingland, northern Sweden, and we were looking at different Helsingegårds and just different farms, some of which were centuries old, and in the especially old houses, you'll find that every room is just covered in paintings. So we were drawing from that aesthetic, and then we commissioned several Swedish artists to paint these walls, and so I gave them direction as far as what they were painting, but they really brought a lot to the film. And then in the very beginning, the murals that are sort of painted on the wooden panels that open, like wooden curtains. I commissioned an artist I really love, a contemporary artist named Mu Pan, who lives in Brooklyn, who is sort of this pop Bosch to take this on, and I really recommend you check out his paintings if that was intriguing, because he's a really remarkable artist.
Cool. So I have a question. I feel like the film really tackles codependency, and it tackles it in a couple of different ways. There's the relationship between Danny and Christian, but also the relationship between the Horga and the rest of the world, where they're kind of relying on their scouts to bring in outside blood to keep them alive and keep them vital. So do you think, in your view, in your opinion, that codependency is necessarily a bad thing, or is Midsommar just showing us the negative side of that coin?
I mean, I have certainly the capacity to like be very codependent, and I was sort of again writing my way through like the the ruins of like a codependent relationship that I had just stepped out of. And so for me, the film was always, if it's a horror film, it's always been a horror movie about codependency. And and whether it's bad or good, I don't know. I think it's I think you can like lose yourself in a codependent relationship, obviously. And so I knew that I wanted to make a film in which we introduce a character who is like in the throes of a codependent relationship, who's really, really in the grip of it, and that by the end she will be liberated from that, but she will have, in effect, found herself in a new codependent relationship, because Horga is this, they are like. They are as codependent a community as you could find.
Right, I mean, like, what relationship isn't kind of codependent, though? I guess I was thinking about it in a binary with, as opposed to a parasitic relationship.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, because there are kind of shades of hostile going on in this, right? Where, you've got these outsiders who come in and they're kind of douchebags. Well, maybe not all of them, just that one who was, like, coded as a douchebag because he was vaping, which I feel really attacked by it, quite frankly. But they're likable guys for the most part, and they still get punished. But at the same time, we live in a global capitalist dog-eat-dog kind of world, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I'll say that there's like functioning codependency, and like Horga is certainly functioning, and the relationship that we kind of open the film on, and that is, the core of the film. That's a dysfunctional codependent relationship.
Agreed. Another question from the audience. There's one up there, yeah.
Hi.
Blue shirt, yeah.
Thank you. So, chemistry reads are sometimes used to see if actors can get along with each other, or that they do. For a movie like this, for a toxic relationship and a toxic friend group, do you do like the opposite of that, like an instant chemistry read, or even just to find that balance? Do people have to work together really well?
Well, and I'll let Jack speak to this as well, but I mean, you especially need there to be some chemistry here, because they've been together for 4 years, and the relationship might be like dead, dying, but something brought them together, and they need to have a history. You need to feel a history between them. I did not do any chemistry reads, but I did know that Jack and Florence were friends, and that was definitely something that I took into consideration before I cast them.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if you want to portray a relationship that feels like it's lived in on screen, then you want to get along with your co-star and your scene partner. And Florence and I have a great relationship with each other, and it's a very warm relationship. And we'd come away from set, like, it was a heavy movie to shoot. It was, particularly for her, she was like every day committed to and living in this really difficult mental space. And it was kind of great that we could go home at the end of every day and we could make dinner for each other and sit down and chat and have a glass of wine and be friends, and then go back to set and like, I mean, I can't even tell you guys the amount of times when we were standing beside each other about to do a take, and we were just like, fuck, I can't believe we have to be like this with each other again. I'm so sorry that I have to behave this way with you. No, I think it definitely gives it a, you know, as I say, a sense that it's kind of lived in. But, you know, she, as an actress, I really kind of feel like there's nothing that she can't do. And particularly, I've never had the experience before of doing a scene with someone where, you know, like in that scene where she discovers what's happened to her family, and she's like screaming. It's that guttural, animalistic, primal response to this horrific trauma and tragedy. And that shot where, you know, just before we punch out the window, and it's the title of the film, where I'm holding her and she's lying across my lap and she's screaming. It was just, I've never had another actor just give me my performance. I didn't even have to think. There was no thinking about it. There's no, what am I going to do here? I just started crying instantly because of the way she was playing and her commitment to it, and it was absolutely fascinating. I've never felt like I was in a situation before where I didn't even need to try. I didn't need to think about it. She basically just gave me the performance, just, you know, picking up her cue, which is really amazing. So, yeah, I just think she's unbelievable.
Sounds a little codependent to me. So I think comparisons to Midsummer are going to, and Wicker Man, are going to abound. And I think the strongest tie that they share is that you have a feeling throughout that these outsiders are going to meet some terrible, terrible end. And the culprits are so cheerful. They're singing and they're smiling, and all of this is happening in broad daylight. So what were some of the challenges in building dread and suspense in 24 Hour Sunshine, or at least depicting that as it is in the film?
It's funny, I've been asked that like so many times this week, and I'm always
Oh.
like fumbling. No. I mean, I feel like I'm always just fumbling for an answer. I mean, I guess that a large part of the dread just like comes with the genre, that you know something's going to happen, and for me, you know, I mean, the least interesting thing about doing a film like this is how you're gonna, is like, you know, what the kills are gonna be and how the people are gonna die, because it's like a given that it's gonna happen. And so if anything, I kind of wanted to treat it as a given. Like, I think if you're in the theater for that, like, you're in for some disappointment. Maybe not, I don't know. There's also something about like getting through making a film and just like having, in some ways I have less insight to what this movie is than anybody else in this room. And so I know that I